Hey guys, Rob here at 3D Printscape. So recently Bambu Studio released a new feature that allows you to mix your own colors. So essentially what it does is you can choose up to 3 colors and it layers them essentially one color at a time per layer to create a new color. So here's a couple examples here or right here. And I'm going to show you how to actually set that up in Bambu Studio, walk through the process, go through some of the pros and cons afterwards, and then give you my final thoughts on when you shouldn't use this. The first thing to note is this only works with compatible printers, so it's typically the lineup that supports the AMS units, but not all Bambu printers are supported, so you're going to want to verify that first, basically. The second thing is you're going to want to make sure you don't mix filament types. So don't mix PLA with PTFG or with TPU or whatever. However you're going to end up doing it, keep the same filament type throughout, unless you're going to have clog issues and that kind of stuff. And the third thing I wanted to point out is you can use the auxiliary spool if you have a printer that has dual print heads like this one does. That saves quite a bit of purge waste, which we'll talk about under the disadvantages of this feature. But let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Alright, so let's show you how to do the color mixing. It's pretty straightforward. So I just imported a small calibration cube, 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter. So you can see that here. Over on the left where we have our filaments, you have to have either 2 or 3 filaments added depending upon what you're working with. So I'm just going to add in the 3 for now. So then I just select the ones I have in the printer. Then right below that you're going to see add mixed filament. So this is where you actually create the mixed filament. So let's just say we wanted to do gray. So using the black and white will give us gray. We can either change the ratio this way and change the final color, or we can choose one of the recommendations. So that will vary according to what you have selected. All right, so let's just go with the gray. And if you want to do the gradient effect, you can just go ahead and check this box. This is only here when you have 2 filaments. If you add the third, it goes away. You can only do the gradient with 2. So if you want to do that, just select it, and then it gives you the option to start with the black and kind of move to the white. So the black will be at the bottom, and then it'll get white as it moves upwards, or the other way around. So I'm just going to not select that for now. So we'll go with the gray here, just to use it as an example for the first one. So hit OK. So now that we got what we want selected, we'll just go down to Object and switch the color. So going from 1 to filament number 4, because it creates essentially a new filament for you. Select that, and it will update the preview and everything. And it also shows our prime tower over here. So you can see here that it's going to use quite a bit. Alright, once you verify it's what you want, go up to Slice. You're going to want to choose the mode based on how your filament is placed. So in this example, both colors are in the AMS unit. So I'd have to do custom mode, hit Slice, and then you'll see that they're both under the main extruder. This is not ideal. There's a lot more filament waste and purge going this route, not to mention time. But let's go ahead and slice it so I can show you as an example. Alright, so here it's saying with this setup, with it being in the same spool, it's essentially going to be using a extra 31 grams of filament and 49 changes compared to the optimal grouping. So I'm showing you both because I want to show you the difference. So let's go ahead and switch this up. I'm going to add one more color over here. Sorry, I got to go into prepare. And I'm going to pull the one that I have on my auxiliary unit and change the colors here. So I'm going to do black and red. So I'm just going to keep this in the middle here with those 2 colors as the example. So let's go ahead and update that. So you can see here it's more of a maroon now instead of a bright red. It is worth noting that the color accuracy in the preview is not always going to be 100%. The final print will look different, so make sure you're testing with a small sample. Before I slice this, so let me jump back over to preview really quick. The other thing I wanted to show is this will take about 2 hours and 43 minutes with what I had sliced before using the main nozzle. Now slicing this using filament savings. So we're going to have black going into the main nozzle, the red going into the auxiliary. That takes it from that 2 hours and 45 minutes down to 43 minutes, which is still about triple the amount of time it takes as if you're just doing two colors on the same print, because it still has to swap it quite a bit more times. But you're saving quite a bit of filament going this route versus going with the other option. So this is my recommendation. And then lastly, I wanted to show you the triple color. So obviously there's not 3 nozzles in this printer. So 2 of the nozzles, or 2 of the colors, are going to have to be from the AMS unit. So you can be adding quite a bit of time. But so I'm just going to do all 3 of them there. Just choose a color or whatever. Let's do purplish. So you can see here it shows a different gradient based on the 3 filaments. You can move this around. But I'm just going to hit OK and reslice it. In this case, because this is using the most optimal path, but that's not how the filament is loaded, so we have to go to custom, drag the color that's on the auxiliary extruder over to that. So I've got white and blue inside of the main and red in the auxiliary, and it gives us the time and the filament used. So basically using 3 colors added about another, give or take, 40 minutes to the equation, and it's saying that it's going to be increasing the filament wastage by about 5 grams compared to optimal, which isn't too bad, but there's still quite a bit of filament used in the purging, which we'll get to in the downside section. But honestly, that's really all there is to it. Alright, the first thing I want to show you as we're walking through this is an example with just a single color. So obviously this is solid black. It took about 11 minutes to print, and that's from when I hit print on the printer to when the application said it was done. So that includes preheat and print time. Alright, so the next one I want to show here is a print with just 2 colors, so black and then white. Both in the AMS unit, so not using the auxiliary. Basically we got the primer tower, our purge waste, and the actual print itself. So not too much waste, but that one took 15 minutes. The next one here is pretty much the same setup. It is 2 colors, black and then red. The only difference is the red came from the auxiliary spool versus both coming from the AMS unit. And you can see that there's less filament purge. So you are saving filament going that way. With the short print like this, it didn't really save time, so it was right around that 15-minute mark, but you saved filament. Alright, this next one is a custom color, so it's more of a maroon, so it's using black and red together. You can see here that the primer tower is larger. It did waste more filament, but this is using the black from the AMS unit and the red from the auxiliary spool. So because it was using the auxiliary spool and AMS with the dual tool head setup, it was able to save quite a bit of filament compared to just the AMS, which we'll get to in a minute. Alright, these next 2 here are pretty much the same, so that's why I put them up at the same time. The only difference is this one here is the gradient mode, so it's going from white to blue, top to bottom, and this one's just a custom blue using the white and blue for your color base. These took about 3 hours to print a piece. They were both from the AMS unit, so it took quite a bit of extra time. Comparing it to the 43 minutes it took to print using the AMS versus the auxiliary. So that's a significant difference in time. I'll show you the actual filament wastes in a second. And then this last one I wanted to show here is a mix of like more of a dark blue, but it's coming from the blue, white, and black, all from the AMS unit. So 3 colors mixed together from AMS unit. It looks pretty cool, but it took forever to print. This took 4.5 hours to print this. So if you're looking at the 2 colors using both tool heads at 43 minutes versus 3 colors all in the same at 4.5 hours, that shows you that selecting the right setup makes a huge difference. Lastly, the main thing I wanted to show here with this example, outside of the time differences, was the amount of filament waste from purging. So this right here is the filament wasted from these 3 prints together. It's 190 grams, so pretty much a fifth of a roll of filament wasted in purge. So I would highly advise not using 2 in the AMS unless you have to. All right, guys, now I wanted to give you my thoughts on how all of this worked out. So I think it's a really cool option that Bambu introduced. It was introduced in 2.5.3, which was quickly replaced by 2.6.0 because it's more of a hotfix of that version. But it is a new feature. It's only been out for, I think, like 2 to 3 weeks. But there are limitations and drawbacks of using this. First one, if you're only using 2 colors and you're using the auxiliary spool or both tool heads, it does take more time and it doesn't use too much more filament, but triple the amount of time versus just doing 2 colors normally. So just something to keep in mind. And if you're going to be using multiple units from within the AMS unit itself, or especially 3 of them, make sure you're paying attention to the time, because I mean, going from 15 minutes or whatever it was to 43 minutes to 3 hours to 4.5 hours, these are huge differences for tiny parts. So when you're looking at scaling this, I tried to do a benchy with this, which was 3 hours, so the same combination, and it was over 12 hours of print time for a benchy. So in those scenarios, it just doesn't make sense. But if you need a custom color and you're only mixing 2, it only being a third of the speed isn't too much of a sacrifice if the print isn't already a very long print. If it is, it's just something you're going to have to think about a bit more. If you guys got any value out of what I showed you today or any of my other videos, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're a smaller channel and getting that traction, especially on new videos, really does help. Alright guys, so that covers the new feature in Bambu Studio that allows you to mix your own colors. It's not a feature I plan on using daily, but I do think it's pretty neat, and it's something that you should probably play around with if you haven't already, just so that you know how to use it if you have the need at some point in time. If you have any questions about what I covered here or would like to see any other videos, go ahead and leave a comment below or join us on Discord.